Good morning, folks. It is just before midnight, just before the 13th, my time, Eastern Daylight, which makes it about just before 4 in the morning GMT. Let's take a look at Forex for the week. This week, it looks like uh, news is going to play a pretty important role in providing direction this week. We've had pretty big moves last week, and we've broken out of some ranges on many pairs, but most of those breakouts stopped on pretty key areas. So we're going to have to use news to determine whether on a lot of those pairs those were um, a continued uh, downtrend in many cases, or whether it's just a significant pullback and we're going to see a continuation of longer term uptrends that are in place. We'll see that on a couple of the pairs. First, let's take a look at pound New Zealand dollar, and you can see that we've already had some significant effect from Chinese trade balance data. That's what this is. So we'll see similar candles on any pair that has to do with the New Zealand dollar or the Australian dollar are all going to have similarities to that. Now, what we can look for early in the week, as early as this London session on pound New Zealand dollar, is for a reaction to this 4-hour 55, 61.8 area, all the way up into the 4-hour Dynafibs. As you can see on this pair, they've been pretty significant as far as price reaction goes. So initially in the week, I'll be looking for a short from those areas. On the pound side, we have the uncertainty around the elections, so that uncertainty is fairly likely to give us pound weakness. All right, let's take a look at pound CAD. We broke the daily 200. However, this bottom is a pretty significant area. We can take a look at that on the daily. So the riskier trade is a short from the 200, which if we see a pound across the board pound weakness early in the week, we could definitely see a short from there. But I would still look to short anywhere in this range, anywhere from between the 255s are good reaction points as well to take a short from. And then of course, if we do move up there, we'll just have to be careful with the daily 200 as well as that low if we end up taking a short from one of the higher areas. If we take a look at the daily here, you can see right where we're at. It's a pretty significant area. So you can see right where we're at now as we're in a pretty significant support and resistance area on the weekly. All right, pound odd, you can see the same candle formation here, and we could, of course, if we pull up into all of these EMAs, that's going to be our first area to look for a short. Of course, we're not really sure yet if we're reversing the trend because we have this upward trend line. This is a weekly. We didn't quite make it back there yet, and we have the top forming a fairly large weekly triangle. But on the short term, we definitely are likely to see a short from this area with the EMAs, and then targeting, our first target would be the trend line, and then any break of the daily 200 would definitely signal a definite downtrend at that point, and we could see a pretty large drop from that point. Of course, if we do break those areas, look for a pullback and then another entry to short. All right, pound yen. I know I wasn't able to do an analysis the last couple weeks. Some unfortunate life events getting in the way there, but hopefully you guys remember that on many pairs we had the approach of either the daily 200 or a major intersection of EMAs. Of course, the daily 200 from here provided a nice short middle of last week. So we'll look for a pullback there, anywhere between the 4-hour 55 up to WR1 or 179, even as high as 179. All right, pound USD, we saw a similar move, so similar results here. First stop for pullback can be the 4-hour 55, and if we have, depending on how the news shakes out, if we get significant spikes in favor of the pound, I'd definitely look for a spike up to the 4-hour 200 and take a short from that level. Euro New Zealand dollar, again, you can see spike from the Chinese news data. We'll look for a move up to the 4-hour 55, possibly up to WR1 at 144, anywhere in that area, including the 4-hour Dynafibs. I'll look for a reaction to short there. EuroCAD going to be in a similar situation. Look for a more significant pullback there, up to this area, the 50% fib. It's been decent support and resistance, and we have the 4-hour 55 in the area. Of course, look for a short there. You can see where we have that trend with commodity currencies. If commodities and especially oil continue to move north for the week, we should see definitely continued strength from both the CAD and the New Zealand dollar. All right, Euro odd, probably Australian dollar, probably the weakest bet of the commodity currencies, but we are closer to an area where technically we could see some more resistance. So it may provide us the better trade anywhere from the superconvergence zone up to the 4-hour 200 or even the daily 55. Of course, we have 1.4 in there as well. Euro JPY, another significant move down after finally touching the 4-hour 200. So of course this week we look for a pullback and 50% fib, 4-hour 55, and in the EMAs it's 61.8. Definitely look good. Of course we may spike up to 130, which would be definitely a good indication if we spike up there and then move back down to take a short. We could also find resistance at 129, so anywhere between 129 and 130 are going to be a good place for me to look for shorts. All right, odd CAD, you can see CAD already doing better against the Australian dollar because of the Chinese data. So look for in this could provide one of our earliest trades for the week. But in the London session, we'd like to see a bit of a pullback from the news, potentially to the 4-hour 55, and then short. All JPY, pretty much the same thing. You'll see all USD is going to be the same thing as well. We've got all the EMAs crowded together between the 4-hour 55 and the daily, which basically gives us between 192 and 193. So that's going to be the area for me to look for reactions to short. All USD, basically the same thing. We had the 4-hour 200, which we couldn't get above, and the daily 55 looming just above that. And of course, we've had the move south from the 4-hour 200 after a couple attempts at it. We've had a pretty big move away from the 4-hour 55, but I'd like to see a pullback at least to the weekly pivot for a continuation of the short. A little bit more aggressive if we continue to see if the super convergence zone comes back into play. Currently, it is not. We don't have the dot on the current 4-hour candles, but we will see if that turns into a resistance area if we get a shallow pullback after this news. USD CAD, this is on the daily. You can see we've been ranging quite a bit with a little bit of a muddy bottom and top. There's the rough bottom and rough top on the daily chart. It's a little bit hard to see, but the daily 55 has been playing a little bit with support and resistance. It looks a bit messy on the 4-hour chart. However, if we can continue to see USD strength, especially if we can see commodities turn around like oil and continue to the short side, again, a lot of this is going to depend on the fundamentals for the week, but we could potentially see a bounce off of the daily 55 or even a shallow pullback to the 4-hour 200. Of course, the big area again is going to be 124. A spike below 124 and move back above will provide another opportunity to long. It's been that way for at least a couple months now. You can see even as early as a couple weeks ago, we had the bounce there. Last week we had the bounce here, and they are can definitely provide some good pips, 360 pips, and WR2 of course is going to be near the top of the range, so continue to look to trade those areas on the USD CAD. USD JPY, a bit messy. Again, 118.75 has been a very important area. We pushed a little bit above 120, but we still haven't broken 121. So you can see anywhere in this group of EMAs, look for shallow bounces from there and a subsequent break of 121. So this is going to be this area here is going to be our more aggressive area to look for longs. The less risky options are going to be either another bounce off 118.75, and usually there's a bit of a spike below that area, so definitely wait for a full confirmation there, or of course a break, pullback, and then a long above 121. Euro USD, pretty significant move down. We made it pretty close to the daily 55 before moving down for the week. So we'll look for, of course, a pullback of at least half of the move. Pretty close to half is going to be the 4-hour 55 or up to 61.8. So kind of the really good area there is probably going to be the top, the bullish 4-hour Dynafib. Look for that to hold and a subsequent short signal. All right, that's it for me for the week. Good luck, everybody, and happy trading.